So in order to build this, we're going to use the Quasar framework. So this is one of my favorite frameworks. It allows you to create an app and with one code base export to desktop application, mobile, to the web as a single page application or as a PWA. It basically exports to a whole bunch of different platforms, but it still keeps things really clean, really fast. I love it. So this is the command to install it if you want to get up and running with the CLI, but I've already got it, so let's dive right in. So I'm going to say Quasar create clickable, and then we're just going to use some sensible defaults here for most of it. Don't need a linter, we're not going to need Vux, and we're not going to need Axios. So let's just get that going. I'm going to use Yarn. Now while that installs, Quasar allows you to enable a whole bunch of their components in a config file. So once this is ready, we're going to dive into the config file and just enable a bunch of Quasar's components. And so one of them will be the dialog component, which we'll use for the modal. Their button component should already be available to us. And I'll just show you what that looks like. So let's cd into clickable and open code in that folder. All right, so I can bring that down. If we jump into the config file, this is what I was just talking about then. And these are all the components that it's giving us out of the box. And now, so they've already given us the button, but I know that another one that they've got is the dialog. So Q dialog, and we're going to use that for our modal. And I think that's all we'll need. Otherwise, we'll jump back into this file. Okay, so let's go to pages. We get this index page to begin with, and we're just going to use that to start off. All right, we're not going to need the style tags at all, so let's just simplify things here. We'll probably just throw in a data object here. There we go. Ooh. Get that ready to go. Open our console. Make sure I put a comma there. I make that mistake quite a bit. And we're going to say Quasar dev. And that should automatically open our browser when it's ready. So that's just compiling everything for us, and it's going to give us a development environment. So there we go. Now this is pretty cool. We get all of this out of the box. It's kind of a really nice material design website, and we're starting from scratch, so let's just dive right in. Now let's quickly do things the old way, and then we're going to slowly extract it into exactly what we want. So I'm going to say here Q button. So that's just how you do a Quasar button. And we'll give it a label of create tag. All right, so let's just check that that's all working fine. There we go, button that says create tag. Let's give it a color just to keep things interesting. And there we go. And I like to lay things out like this. Just kind of becoming the standard way to lay out HTML now. And now we're going to say @click, and when the button is clicked, we're going to set the modal, we'll say show modal equal to true. Now of course we're actually going to have to define that within our data. So let's set that to false by default. And there we go, everything should be working. Now we're not going to see anything happen of course, because we don't have our modal yet. Now in Quasar it's called a dialog, say Q dialog, which is basically a modal. And let's just write test here, or maybe something a bit more descriptive like create tag. And v dash modal is equal to show modal. All right, so let's give that a go, see if it works. There we go, we get our create tag modal. It's looking a little bit funky. We might have to turn this into might have to put this inside a div or something and give it a background. Let's say background white, and give that a go. See how that turns out for us. Yeah, there we go. All right, we might just add a little bit of padding here. Q-padding or medium. I love these utility classes. I can build things so much quicker with them. There we go. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And that's the basic concept that we've got covered now. You've probably done this a million times before, unless you're new, of course, where you just click on that button, shows a modal. All right, so that's cool. But you can imagine that this file might get bigger and bigger and bigger, and especially when you're repeating this pattern over and over again, it becomes cumbersome. So let's put it into its own component. So let's say create, not button, create tag button. Okay, so in fact, we can probably just close that straight off like this. All right, and we're just going to whack this into that component, that create tag button. So I've cut that. Now, cool thing about Quasar is it's got a little scaffolding tool for us. So we can say Quasar new component, create tag button, and that's going to put it into a sensible place for us, which will just be in the components folder. So we're going to components, we've got our create tag button, got a lot of it already scaffolded for us. And let's just whack it straight in there. So there we go. We're also going to need now the show modal data property. So let's throw that in here. We're going to set that to false by default. We scroll up a bit, make sure everything looks good. I think it does, so I'm going to save that. Go back to our index and make sure that we import it as well. So I'm going to say import, might just copy that there just to make things fast. From // components, / create tag button .view. Let's just give you a little bit more space so you can see what's going on here. Cool. And I usually like to have my components above my data property. There we go. So let's just whack that in there. Cool. That should be about it. All right, so what have I done wrong here? I haven't written components right. My fingers don't like spelling components. All right, cool. So let's just refresh the page. Let's see if that's working right off the bat. There we go. So we've successfully extracted that. And this is much cleaner. So look at that. Much nicer. And this is a pattern that you've probably done a few times before. Now, let's see if we can do what we were talking about before and just turn this into a clickable wrapper. So for example, it might look like this. On, click, create, tag, or even better still, on, click, open, create, tag, modal. Or since it's called a dialog, I like to try and keep things consistent. So let's just call it a dialog there. All right, so let's get rid of that. We're going to use, actually we're going to have to keep that modal, but not there. We can get rid of it here. Create tag button, we can get rid of that and replace it with on click open create tag dialog. And we're going to put a button inside of that like this. Q button, let's give it a label of create tag. Okay, so we've got a little bit of extra markup here, but I think it's totally worth it because we can throw whatever we want in there. So now let's create this component by saying Quasar new component, whack the name of the component in there, and here it is. And we'll just grab whatever's in here, just as a starting point. There we go. And whack it in there. And we're probably going to grab this as well. Yeah, that would make sense. Just the data properties. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put another div in here. And the reason we need that is because we want to say whatever's inside this div, okay, when we click on it, we're going to set show modal equal to true. All right, so instead of having the button now, this is going to be dynamic, and we're just going to add the slot like this. So whatever's slotted in there, whatever we slot inside this component, make sure that when it is clicked, the show modal property is set to true. Okay, cool. And then we've got the dialog just sitting underneath, and that's about it. Let's have a look and see if it works. All right, so I've done something wrong. That's okay. On click open. Oh, okay, of course. So if we go into index, we haven't actually defined this component. So let's import it from // components and then the name of the component. Okay, so let's refresh the page, create tag, and there we go, it works. Okay, so it's the same result, but let's have a look at what's happening here. So we have this component on click open create tag dialog, and it's taking this button, right, It's taking this button and it's injecting it here. It's slotting it in here so that when it is clicked, the modal will be shown. Okay? And so the cool thing about this is that we can put absolutely anything we want in here. We could literally just whack in some text. So click me to create a tag. And we get the same functionality there. Or maybe this up here. So maybe we could try throwing it into another component. And maybe we could change that to a button that says create tag. Let's have a go of that. So we're going to copy the name of it. And now I know that Quasar comes with a layout. So if we go into layouts, we can go to my layout. Okay, and that's basically everything that's encompassing this page here. And if we scroll down to the JavaScript, we can just import it like this from components / there we go. And then we also need to register the component. Cool. So that's all we need to do to make something clickable. Isn't that cool? We literally just like import this clickable dialog, and then we can just use it anywhere in the app. So let's go .. components. And now let's find something that we want to wrap. All right, so here's the title and here's the version. So this is the thing I was talking about at the top there. So literally we just wrap it like this. It's unbelievably cool. And it'll give us that functionality. Boom, it works. I just think that is so cool, and I just think that is such a cool pattern. And just to sort of drill this home, let's try it one more time, but this time we're going to use an li. So let's try this with an unordered list. All right, whack that in there. And then of course, we're gonna have our list items, and this might be create tag, and we're just gonna wrap it up. So let's just steal this right here. Close it off. And it works with an unordered list as well. Boom. Anywhere in our app, we can get this create tag modal. There you have it, guys, the clickable component pattern. I hope you enjoyed this video. And hey, if you liked it, share it with somebody else who you think might like it too. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time and attention. All right, see you next time.